You plan for, was it $5,000?
Yeah, exactly.
$5,000. That includes the climb to Everest.
I had been saving money since I was young.
Yeah. What inspired you to climb Everest?
Like projecting myself far ahead, but I haven't really thought about it yet. When I got sick, I realized that you can't take time for granted.
Right.
Time is not a given. Health is not a given. What do I want to do? Because I'm not in a hurry, but I need to make the most out of my time.
People like in Silicon Valley, New York, people work really hard, and then people ask, "Hey, how do you achieve a work-life balance?" There's no work-life balance. You have to prioritize. Are you prioritizing work or life?
So if I tell myself right now I don't feel capable and I'm listening to my body, so I'm going to go back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. You've succeeded because you've listened to yourself.
Yeah. Success or failure is more like a result of a comparison as opposed to a personal perception.
In society, we're often told different is odd.
Right.
Different is excluded.
Right.
But I think the difference is evolution.
Yeah.
People always tell me, you're young. I am young. Doesn't mean I'm going to live till I'm old.
Right.
So I want to live my life fully, and that's why I write a lot. But at the same time, I feel like if I die today, I've achieved what I wanted to.
Yeah, you wrote a book.
My book is a way to remind people that knowing yourself is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And devoting that time is so important.
Right. In the afternoon, someone was saying that you are only 20. Your life is just started, but it seems like you already lived a life. I think that's really powerful. So we have Claudia here, and Claudia from Canada. Yeah, Canada on the road for 5 months. And then Claudia shared a lot of really inspiring stories. You know, her journey of finding herself. What inspired you to start the journey?
Yeah, so what inspired me is there's nothing in particular. I think it's more so the fact that when I got sick, I couldn't walk, and I thought the Camino would be a great way to get back and show up for myself. Santiago de Compostela, which is a 750-kilometer walk that I did. I started in Lisbon and ended in Santiago and then kept going until Finisterre.
So you bought a one-way ticket to Spain?
To Lisbon, Portugal.
To Portugal, and then started walking the journey.
Yeah, exactly, from there. And I didn't want to buy a return ticket because I didn't know how long it was going to take me. I had really no clue what I was going to do. And after arriving and completing that 750 kilometers, it felt as though I was starting a journey and I wasn't finishing a walk. And so from there, I just kept traveling. And as I kept traveling, I just realized that I come from a very privileged place and that I have a lot to offer and I have so much to gain and so much to learn. And traveling is just an incredible way of doing it. And there's nothing actually holding me to go back home.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you quit your 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, I quit more than a year ago. So yeah, to me it wasn't really something. I had been saving money since I was young, and I was still living at home. So for me, it was kind of just like, well, if I travel, I'm kind of living alone, and I'm
You saved some money, and you mentioned that you're not spending as much money, right? You plan for, was it $5,000?
Yeah, exactly.
$5,000. That includes the climb to Everest. That cost 2,800.
2,800.
Right, so the remaining is like.
I know I haven't been spending a lot of money at all.
It's really impressive. Yeah, including flights. You lived on Earth for like almost half a year.
Yeah. No, and like some nights I just didn't have a bed. Some days I didn't buy food. I decided to live just off the land. So for me, that was part of the experience. Part of understanding. I grew up with having everything I needed, but for me, at least trying to live that way was very important because I think that you can do the most with the least. And that's when your creativity really shows up and transpires into your life.
Yeah, you mentioned that be willing to be homeless for a while, right? So basically, I think being homeless is more about a challenge to break through like mentally to be able to not depend on certain like external comfortable environments.
Yes. Things we're so used to in a way.
Yeah, having a mattress, having
having a roof, having being dry at night. Like I spent 12 days where I was soaking wet when I was walking the Camino because I sent back my sleeping bag after getting injured.
Oh.
And it was pouring rain for 12 days straight when I was walking. Like there were announcements on the weather like app forecast, and they're like thunderstorms and heavy rain and beware.
Yeah.
And I was walking every day in that rain, and because I didn't have a sleeping bag, the only thing I could dry myself with was my towel, but my towel was also my blanket. So the minute I wet myself and I would try to dry myself, well, then I would be wet from the blanket, from the towel, because it wouldn't dry fast enough. So I always had to contemplate, okay, is it better to dry myself up and try to dry the blanket, the towel, or am I better off sleeping with a humid towel?
Yeah.
So for 12 days, I wasn't fully dry, and just that became a privilege. The first day I was dry and I was like clean and not soaking wet. Felt like privilege.
I think it helps you to feel happiness, right? As you lower your bar of your comfortable level, it helps you to, you're more sensitive to happiness. Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's just entering a state of peace.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very peaceful. And when I face a challenge, I don't feel defeated. I feel like excitement to, okay, how am I gonna deal with this situation? And I feel like that is it's just constantly feeding your soul instead of feeling defeated, incapable.
Yeah. I think like success or failure is more like a result of a comparison as opposed to a personal perception. Yeah.
I think what do I know I'm capable of, and what am I currently achieving?
Yeah.
And I think the only way we can fully feel as though we've achieved success is by being present.
Yeah.
What do I need right now?
Yeah.
Because right now is all we have. The future is you're blind to the future, and the past is something that has been lived.
Yeah.
And so you need to be at peace, because in the current moment, if you're showing up the way you would want to, well then you don't have to go back in the past and heal those wounds, because you're healing them. Well, you're just not healing them. You're just interacting with them the way you would want to interact with them in that moment. Yeah. And I feel like it's just acceptance of the present. Yeah. And that's entering a state of peace. And I think that's when for me, that's how I feel like I'm achieving
peace is a result when we kind of get rid of the idea of what's good or what's bad.
Yeah, it's just everything. Everything is about intention. Yeah. So it's to know where we want to be, and what we want to do, and who we want to be.
Right, exactly. The kind of person we want to be is more important than the question like what you want to do. Like what we do should be a result of becoming the person we want to be. But it's less about this type of a job, this type of career. Oh yeah. Yeah, those are just byproduct of the person, the identity of the person. Yeah. So did you figure that as part of while you were traveling?
Well, I did. All of these things I kind of figured out gradually after getting sick. I think that for me was really a wake-up call of, okay, obviously I don't know how I'm interacting with my body because my body is sick.
Right, you couldn't walk at that point. Yeah.
And it's remaining sick. So obviously I don't know what my body needs. So I'm not communicating with myself authentically. Yeah. So that's how I got into art as well. Yeah. It became my medium to understand how I was perceiving life. And I think that with the years, traveling also helped a lot, because I didn't realize how much I could show up for myself. All these things I've been doing, I haven't felt challenged, or not challenged, but I haven't felt as though I was defeated at any time. I've always felt as though I was living an experience, and it was always good, so in the
experience, there's no failure. Like climbing a mountain, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I didn't make it to the top." It's a failure, right? You enjoy the journey, you enjoy the view as you climb.
I think that if you decide not to go to the top, if you perceive it as failure, is that in that moment you chose not to do what you wanted to do.
Right.
So if I tell myself right now I don't feel capable and I'm listening to my body, so I'm going to go back down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. You've succeeded because you've listened to yourself.
Yeah.
And once I was cliff jumping the group of people, and at one point I was like, I actually don't want to jump off. I was like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to get wet right now.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And people told me, oh, you're going to regret it. And in my head it was, no, I'm not going to regret it because I'm doing what I want to do.
Right.
And so sometimes it's good to push ourselves, but sometimes we know better, and external factors are just, it's just pressure
or other people's expectation of you.
Exactly. It's just, as long as you listen to yourself and you do what you think is best, that's all.
I think like it's for you to some degree, it's kind of fortunate for you to have this awakening call, because a lot of people wait until the very end. As we age, we develop certain sickness, and then we realized, oh, this is we're heading towards the end, but they realized too late in their 60s, 70s, 80s. But then you were, how old were you?
I'm 20 right
20,
now.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of in that mindset more and more for the past 2 years.
For 2 years, yeah. I think that's really fortunate that you had this realization, and then at a younger age, and then you can kind of continue to your journey, not just the like physical traveling journey, but also your journey in life. It's never about getting to the end, but and be able to enjoy the journey.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So what inspired you to climb Everest?
Honestly, I had mentioned it probably a year ago. I was like, that's something I actually maybe do one day.
Yeah.
And I was in Morocco, and I told myself, in November, I was in Morocco before leaving and coming back now.
Yeah.
I told myself, I was going to climb it.
Yeah.
Let's just have a look. And I looked at it on the internet, and I was like, well, you know what? Let's just book it.
Yeah.
And I just booked it. And it ended up being amazing. I'm very happy to have done that. And you know what? It's just like projecting myself far ahead, but I haven't really thought about it yet. And it wasn't really thought through. It's more so like, told myself I would do it. There you go. And yeah, that's kind of how it unfolded. It wasn't a thought process or just like anything in particular, just more so a thought that came to mind because I was like, oh, I mentioned that one day I would want to climb it, so let's do it.
Sometimes there's a saying like, life is wasted when you're busy planning. Right? You're busy planning the future, but then you miss the present, you miss the moment. And then you had an inspiration, but inspiration is also perishable. You could have this inspiration now, but if you don't take any action, maybe you want to wait until retirement, until getting married or whatever. But then maybe 5 years, 10 years later, you do not have this inspiration anymore. You lost the opportunity to pursue the dream you had.
I think it's also the fact that when I got sick, I realized that you can't take time for granted.
Right.
Health and time are never a given.
Yeah.
And people always tell me, you're young. I am young. Doesn't mean I'm going to live till I'm old.
Right.
So I want to live my life fully, and that's why I write a lot, because I tell myself, if I write, it gives the opportunity to people and my family to know me.
Yeah.
And to be able to read about my story, and that I'm leaving a trace behind. So it might never get read, or I might never do anything. But at the same time, I feel like if I die today, I've achieved what I wanted to.
Yeah, you wrote a book. Yeah. And I think while you're writing the book, it's also a great opportunity for you to reflect, 100%. To organize your thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. And just like kind of share a piece of me. I think that we lack a lot of understanding of ourselves in this society. We don't know how we want to interact with the world. We don't know who we are because we're not given the chance, and we don't take the time to get to know ourselves.
Right.
And I feel like my book is a way to remind people that knowing yourself is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And devoting that time is so important.
Right.
Because it allows you to also turn it into action.
Yeah.
And when you know yourself, you know what type of actions you want to do. And when you do these actions, you do them out of love and not out of fear of, oh, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to do this to prove to others I'm capable of doing this. It's not about that. It's about doing what you want to do so that you feel like your life is offering you what you need. And that life is giving you as much as you are giving it. And sometimes it's going to give more. Sometimes you're going to give more. But that's part of it. That you have to go to those times where you feel like you're giving more to then also understand how much you need to give and balance, find your balance. When people say it's all about balance, it's all about balance doesn't mean anything. It's what is your balance? That is the question. And people don't know that answer.
I think it's also a result of how people prioritize. Like when people like in Silicon Valley, in New York, people work really hard. And then people ask, hey, how do you achieve a work-life balance? There's no work-life balance. You have to prioritize. Are you prioritizing work or life? You have to make your own decision. There's no standard answer. There's no right answer. You have to intentionally find your own balance. Today we're just chatting about like how people were educated, right? As part of the education process was somewhat designed to make sure you lost yourself. You follow the societal standard.
Lose your creativity. And I think that, that's it. People think that, like, I have one example. And I actually wrote this in the second book I'm writing. And when I was 7, I hold a pen like, I'll show you. Like, so I hold a pen like this. And I was told by my teacher, no, you need to hold a pen like this. And there was this kid in my class that had a little kind of like foam thing for him to learn how to hold a pen like this. And I
it's like a molded foam, right?
And I told myself, I'm never gonna. This is how I write. This is how I'm gonna keep writing. And I'm so happy that my 7-year-old self was able to make that statement of, no, you are telling me that the way I'm doing it is wrong, but knowing that I'm not doing it wrong, I just have a different way. And in society, we're often told different is odd. Different is excluded. But I think that difference is evolution. Difference is diversity. It is bringing more to your environment, because if everyone's the same, how are you supposed to function?
The difference in you is your unique value in the society.
Of course. Everyone. So that's why I'm very happy that at 7 years old I was able to tell myself, no, I'm gonna keep holding my pen like this. And now I'm a full-time artist and I do line work. So maybe I was never supposed to learn how to write like this, because this wasn't meant to be for me. And I
That's a great example. Like, as people were getting educated, kind of afraid, right? We were talking about, why do we have free education? That's exactly, education is funded by capital. Capital wanted to make sure that as the next generation grows up, they're kind of planting the seed of desires. You have to buy this car, this house. You have to work for until 60, 65, whatever. So they're planting the seed through education. And but as a person, if you're able to kind of free yourself, but that's a challenge. We have to admit that it's a challenge, and then I think everyone has to figure out their own path.
And I think that creativity is not something that people know necessarily how to develop. Passions. Many people don't know what they're passionate about. And I think that stems from the incapacity of asking yourself questions that are like valuable to you. I think that people ask themselves questions that society tells them to ask. But curiosity to me is the greatest state of intelligence. The minute you are able to ask questions, answers come. But people were not taught to question ourselves. We're not taught how to ask yourself questions. So I think that by being able to explore different environments, that can help you understand and pick up questions here and there and see how people question themselves around the world.
Yeah, it's less about finding the answer, but find the right question.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? What's your goal in life? What makes you happy? As opposed to, keep chasing for goals that the society defined for you. Like you graduate at this age, you find a job at this age, you get married, buy a house, get a mortgage. This is all like questions or missions defined by other people.
Yeah.